Humans like to tell a simple story about cats. Ancient people noticed wildcats catching mice, welcomed them inside, and over time those cats became pets. The truth is far stranger and more fascinating, because cats were not domesticated once in a clean, planned way, but at least twice in different places under different pressures and largely on their own terms. Unlike dogs, which were shaped intensely by human selection, cats slipped into our lives quietly, driven by opportunity, tolerance, and mutual benefit rather than obedience. Their domestication is less a story of control and more a story of coexistence, where humans and cats kept choosing each other again and again. The first domestication began around 9,000 to 10,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, the region that includes parts of modern-day Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and surrounding areas. This was the birthplace of agriculture, where humans shifted from hunting and gathering to farming. As people began storing grain, they accidentally created a new ecosystem. Grain attracted rodents, and rodents attracted wildcats, specifically the Near Eastern wildcat, Felis sylvestre slipica. These cats were solitary, cautious hunters, not pack animals, and they had little interest in humans themselves. But the rodents clustering around human settlements were an easy food source, and cats that were slightly less fearful of people could hunt there more successfully. Humans noticed fewer pests, healthier food stores, and probably fewer disease-carrying animals. Without anyone planning it, a partnership formed. This first domestication was driven by natural selection rather than deliberate breeding. Wildcats that tolerated human presence survived better around villages, while aggressive or overly fearful individuals stayed in the wild. Over generations, cats around humans became subtly different. They were not dramatically smaller or weaker, but their behavior shifted. They became less reactive, more adaptable, and better at living near people. Importantly, humans did not control their mating or movements the way they did with livestock or dogs. Cats came and went freely, which meant their domestication was light and incomplete. Even early domestic cats were still very similar to their wild ancestors in both appearance and instincts. One of the strongest pieces of evidence for this early relationship comes from Cyprus, an island that never had native wildcats. Archaeologists discovered a 9,500-year-old grave containing a human buried carefully alongside a cat. The cat must have been brought there by humans, which suggests the relationship was already meaningful. This was not a random pest control animal, but a creature valued enough to be transported across water and buried with care. Even at this early stage, cats were not just useful, they were emotionally significant. As agriculture spread into Europe, cats traveled with humans mostly by boat and trade routes. They followed grain stores, ships, and settlements, expanding across continents. Throughout this spread, cats remained semi-domesticated. They were tolerated, even welcomed, but rarely controlled. This allowed their wild traits to remain strong. Modern domestic cats still share over 95% of their DNA with Near Eastern wildcats, far more than dogs share with wolves. This explains why cats can revert to feral lifestyles so easily and why their hunting instincts remain sharp even when well fed. The second domestication happened thousands of years later and in a very different cultural context, ancient Egypt. While cats already lived alongside humans elsewhere, Egypt transformed the relationship. Here, cats were not just tolerated, they were revered. Egyptian society depended heavily on grain storage along the Nile, making pest control crucial. Cats thrived in this environment, but Egyptians went further by actively protecting and valuing them. Cats became symbols of fertility, protection, and divine order. The goddess Bastet, often depicted as a woman with a cat's head, represented home, motherhood, and joy. Killing a cat, even accidentally, could result in severe punishment. This cultural shift changed cats in new ways. In Egypt, humans began to influence cat breeding more intentionally, though still far less aggressively than with other animals. Certain traits such as coat patterns, temperament, and social tolerance became more common. Genetic studies suggest that the tabby pattern we associate with many modern cats became widespread much later, likely linked to human preference rather than survival advantage. Egyptian cats were also more likely to live inside homes, interact closely with people, and be treated as companions rather than just hunters. From Egypt, cats spread again, this time with a stronger cultural identity attached to them. Traders, sailors, and armies carried Egyptian cats across the Mediterranean into Europe, Asia, and beyond. These cats mixed with earlier domesticated populations, reinforcing traits suited to human environments. This is why scientists often describe cat domestication as happening twice, not as two completely separate events, but as two major phases, an early natural partnership in the Fertile Crescent and a later cultural and symbolic domestication in Egypt that reshaped how humans viewed cats. Despite these changes, cats never fully surrendered their independence. Unlike dogs, they were not selected for obedience, herding, or guarding. Humans did not need cats to follow commands, they needed them to hunt. This meant intelligence, autonomy, and strong prey drive remained valuable. Even today, cats train humans more effectively than humans train cats, using vocalizations, eye contact, and behavior patterns to get what they want. Studies show that cats develop meows specifically tuned to human hearing, a clear sign of adaptation, but one that preserves their agency rather than diminishing it. Physically, domesticated cats changed very little. They became slightly smaller on average, their skull shape softened, and their brains shrank modestly, a common trait in domesticated animals. But these changes are subtle. A house cat released into the wild can survive, hunt, and reproduce with ease. This is why feral cat populations explode so quickly and why conservationists worry about their impact on wildlife. Cats were shaped to live alongside humans, but not to depend entirely on them. The emotional bond between humans and cats also developed differently from other domesticated animals. Because cats chose proximity rather than submission, the relationship feels more equal. People often describe earning a cat's trust rather than commanding it. This dynamic likely appealed to many ancient societies and continues to resonate today. In stressful or crowded human environments, cats offered quiet companionship, warmth, and a sense of calm without demanding constant attention or structure. Over time, myths and misunderstandings surrounded cats. In medieval Europe, their association with pagan traditions and nocturnal behavior led to fear and persecution. Ironically, this hostility may have worsened plague outbreaks, as fewer cats meant more rodents. Still, cats endured, slipping back into human settlements when conditions allowed. Their long history of semi-independence made them resilient to cultural shifts that might have destroyed a more tightly controlled domestic species. Modern genetics confirms what history suggests. All domestic cats today descend primarily from Near Eastern wildcats with strong influence from the Egyptian lineage. Even pedigree breeds are a very recent development, mostly within the last 150 to 200 years. For most of their shared history with humans, cats were not bred for appearance, but shaped by environment and tolerance. This makes them one of the least altered domesticated animals on Earth. In the end, cats domesticated themselves twice because humans kept creating environments that rewarded their presence, and because cats were flexible enough to take advantage of those opportunities without losing who they were. They entered our villages, our farms, our ships, and our homes not as servants but as partners. They were never fully wild, never fully tame, and that balance is exactly why they succeeded. When a cat curls up beside a human today, it is echoing a relationship that began thousands of years ago, not with a leash or a command, but with a shared silence and a mutual understanding that life is easier when we live together.